Lyra adjusted her gloves and took a deep breath as she stepped into the main training hall of the Interstellar Academy. The room was enormous, stretching higher than the tallest tower back on Earth, filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable. Some had 4 arms, some had wings, some had scales that shimmered under the artificial lights. And then there was her, human, small and delicate-looking in comparison to the massive figures surrounding her. She could feel the eyes of the other trainees on her, a mixture of curiosity, amusement, and outright disbelief. Whispers floated through the air. "Fragile species," a tall, armored alien muttered, shaking his head.
"I don't know why they let humans in." Another snickered. "A being with luminescent skin and long whip-like limbs."
"She'll break after the first obstacle. You'll see."
Lyra's heart skipped a beat, but only for a moment.
She had learned long ago that hearing doubt didn't make her weaker. It only made her sharper. She stepped forward, ignoring the snickers, and focused on the task in front of her. The low-gravity agility course. The course was simple for most of the other species. Platforms floated in mid-air, and trainees had to leap from one to the next, performing spins and flips that defied human expectations. Lyra's first attempts were awkward. Her feet slipped slightly, and her jumps were short compared to the soaring aliens around her. She could almost hear them laughing, imagining her failure. But when the session ended and the others left for their quarters, Lyra's real training began. Hidden in a small, isolated chamber, she activated the gravity control. The walls groaned as the room shifted, and the gravity slowly increased, pressing down on her body like a relentless weight. Her muscles protested immediately. 5 times the normal gravity. Most aliens could not last more than a few seconds in such conditions, their bones or bodies too fragile to handle it. Lyra smiled. Humans had evolved to adapt, to survive, to endure. She took a deep breath and began her exercises. The first few moments were agony. Her arms felt like lead, her legs like stone. But she had prepared for this. She had read about the humans who had trained under gravity 2 or 3 times the normal force, and had survived impossible conditions. She focused on each movement, each step, each breath. She pushed herself to lift weights far heavier than her own body, to sprint across the chamber without faltering, to leap higher than she believed possible. Time lost all meaning. She trained until sweat dripped into her eyes, until her muscles trembled and ached with every motion. And still she pushed, because she knew the truth that the others refused to see. Humans were resilient. Humans thrived where others faltered. After what felt like hours, she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Her body was battered, bruised, exhausted, but alive, stronger than she had been before. She smiled through the pain. She was only beginning. The next morning, the aliens were as dismissive as ever. "Did you see the human?" a 3-legged competitor asked his friend. "She's still crawling along like a child. How will she ever survive the real tests?" Lyra heard the words, but let them pass. Publicly, she maintained the image of fragility, but privately, she had already surpassed their strength. She had already endured what they could not even imagine. Her quiet defiance attracted the attention of a few curious individuals. One of them was Trix, a 4-armed alien who had always excelled in agility and strategy. Unlike the others, Trix did not mock Lyra. Instead, he observed her closely, noting her determination, her precise movements, her willingness to push herself further than anyone else dared. "You move differently," Trix said one day, stepping beside her after a particularly grueling drill. "It's unusual, but efficient." "I've never seen someone adapt so quickly," Lyra shrugged, wiping sweat from her brow.
"I have to," she said simply. "If I don't, I'll fail."
"If I fail, I'll be just another example of what everyone expects from humans." Trix nodded, understanding more in her words than she realized.
"The others don't see it yet," he said.
"But they will. I think they're underestimating you. And that could be a mistake. Lyra smiled faintly. One bath. They bathed the room in an intimate glow. She liked tricks. He didn't pity her. He didn't laugh. And, most importantly, he understood the value of quiet perseverance. Together, they sometimes trained in secret corners of the academy, where gravity could be increased without attracting attention. They practiced coordination, strategy, and adaptability, skills that could tip the balance in the galaxy-wide competitions that awaited them. Days turned into weeks. Lyra's secret routine in the 5X gravity chamber became her sanctuary. She could feel her strength building in ways the others could never imagine. Her legs could push her higher and faster. Her arms could strike with precision and speed. Her reflexes sharpened until she could dodge falling debris and swinging obstacles almost instinctively. She started experimenting. Sometimes she pushed gravity to 6x for short bursts. Sometimes she held still in the chamber for longer than she thought possible, letting her muscles and bones adjust to the crushing weight. The pain was constant, but it was also a reminder she was human, and humans endured. Humans overcame. One evening, as the sun, or rather the Academy's artificial sun, set behind the massive training towers, an alien scientist accidentally wandered into the chamber. He froze as he saw Lyra moving fluidly in 5x gravity, lifting objects and sprinting in ways that defied logic. He blinked, utterly shocked. "Impossible," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. Lyra didn't notice him. She was too focused on the next sprint, the next leap. But the scientist's reaction would have consequences. Whispers spread quickly. Soon the Academy buzzed with speculation. Could humans really withstand such forces? Could this fragile species, once dismissed, be secretly stronger than the giants and monsters around them? Despite the growing attention, Lyra remained calm. She did not seek fame nor revenge for the insults. She sought only mastery over her body, her mind, and her limits. She knew that the galaxy would judge her not by her size or appearance, but by what she could accomplish. Even so, she allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She remembered the words her mother had said back on Earth. Strength isn't measured by how much you lift or how fast you run. Strength is measured by how long you can endure, how hard you can push when everyone else says you can't. Lyra had endured. She had pushed. And this was only the beginning. At night, in her small quarters, she would sit by the window, looking out at the endless stars. They seemed impossibly vast, filled with countless worlds and civilizations, each with its own challenges and dangers. But she did not feel fear. She felt excitement. She felt determination. She knew that she, a human, could face anything the galaxy threw at her. And soon, she would have the chance to prove it, not in secret, not in whispers, but in full view of everyone who had doubted her. But for now, she rested, letting her body recover, while her mind plotted the next level of training. She visualized the challenges ahead, imagining herself leaping, dodging, and enduring obstacles no other species could survive. The 5X gravity chamber had prepared her, but the galaxy had more waiting, and Lyra was ready. She drifted into sleep, muscles sore, but heart steady. Dreams of stars and distant worlds filled her mind, and for the first time in her life at the Academy, she allowed herself a small, confident smile. They had called her fragile. They had laughed. They had underestimated her. But by the time the first trials began, they would see the truth. Humans were formidable. And Lyra would be the living proof. Lyra woke early that morning before the artificial sun had fully risen, her body still sore from the previous day's 5X gravity session. Every muscle ached, every joint protested, but she felt alive in a way the others never would. She moved quietly through the empty halls of the Academy, careful not to be seen, and made her way to the secret training chamber. The door hissed open, and the gravity inside immediately pressed against her body, heavier than any alien could endure. 5 times normal. She breathed in deeply, letting the weight settle on her. Pain came, as it always did, but she welcomed it now. It was not a punishment. It was proof that she was alive, that she was growing stronger. She began her drills, focusing on speed first, her legs pumped like pistons, her arms slicing through the air as she moved across the chamber floor. Small weights attached to her limbs increased resistance, forcing her muscles to work harder with each step. Sweat poured down her face, but she ignored it. She could do more. She always could. After speed came strength. Lyra lifted objects far heavier than herself. Rocks, metal beams, simulation crates, over and over again. Every lift pushed her limits. Every repetition was a statement. She was not fragile. She would never be fragile. Occasionally, she experimented with extreme gravity bursts. 6 times normal for a few seconds, then back to 5. 7 for a brief moment, testing the boundaries of human endurance. Each attempt left her gasping, muscles screaming, but each time she survived, she learned something new about her body. While she trained, she thought about the others, the aliens who mocked her, the fragile species whispers. They didn't understand. Strength was not just muscle. Strength was persistence, adaptation, willpower. And humans had all 3 in abundance. It was during one of these secret sessions that Trix appeared, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He had discovered her secret, not by accident, but because he had been watching her quietly. He didn't speak at first, simply observing as Lyra moved with incredible speed and power under impossible gravity. "You're insane," Trix said finally, breaking the silence. His voice held awe, not mockery.
"I've seen my species struggle at 3x gravity. And you?"
"You're moving at 5. Almost 6, like it's nothing." Lyra wiped the sweat from her brow and smiled faintly.
It's not nothing. It's practice. Playing and marshalling.
"If I can survive this, I can survive anything. And someday, I will need that." Trix shook his head. "You're taking this far beyond training."
"You're beyond human limits."
Lyra shrugged. "Maybe. But maybe humans are meant to be more than the limits anyone else imagines." Over the following weeks, Lyra and Trix began training together in secret. He taught her advanced agility techniques and combat maneuvers, while she taught him endurance strategies. It was an unusual partnership. Trix had power, skill, and experience. Lyra had ingenuity, resilience, and an unshakable determination. Together, they pushed each other further than either could alone. During one session, they simulated a survival scenario. The chamber shifted gravity, emitted simulated heat and cold, and dropped obstacles from above. Trix struggled, his multi-limbed body slowed by the extreme gravity. Lyra, though exhausted, moved faster, dodging falling beams and leaping over crushing weights with a precision that left him speechless. "How do you do it?" Trix asked between breaths, his arms trembling.
"I can't move like you. I can't endure like you."
Lyra paused for a moment, catching her own breath. "It's not magic," she said quietly. "It's endurance, and it's repetition. I keep pushing, no matter what. I never give up, and I never settle. That's the difference." Word of her secret began to leak slowly. A few trainees saw her moving in impossible ways through observation windows. Rumors spread. The human could survive forces no alien could. At first, the gossip was disbelief, even mockery. "Humans cheat," one accused. "They must have some hidden advantage." But when the Academy's scientists analyzed reports and images from surveillance, they could not deny it. Lyra's body performed movements and resisted gravity far beyond what they believed possible for a human. Whispers turned to cautious admiration. Some aliens who had dismissed her now looked at her with curiosity and even envy. Lyra did not seek attention. She did not need it. Her training was not for approval. It was for preparation, and the galaxy was about to test her in ways no gravity chamber ever could. One afternoon, the Academy announced a preliminary trial for the upcoming interstellar competition. Trainees would face an obstacle course designed to test strength, agility, strategy, and survival instincts. For many aliens, it was routine. They had trained for this their entire lives. But Lyra knew this course would be nothing compared to her secret sessions. The day of the trial, the aliens gathered in the observation gallery, their confidence radiating. They looked at Lyra, small and seemingly delicate, and smirked. "Fragile species," one muttered again. She focused on her breathing, visualizing the course in her mind. She could see the obstacles, the traps, the challenges. She could feel the strain on her muscles, the pull of gravity, the tension of every movement, and she was ready. The trial began. Aliens leaped, swung, and sprinted with practiced skill. Lyra moved carefully at first, measuring her strength, gauging the gravity, adjusting to the rhythm of the course. And then she pushed. She ran faster than anyone expected, leaping higher, dodging obstacles with a grace that seemed impossible for her size. The aliens faltered. Some stumbled under the weight of simulated debris. Others overestimated their strength and misjudged jumps. Lyra, trained under 5 times normal gravity, navigated every challenge with precision. Every step was controlled, every movement calculated. She did not just survive the course, she dominated it. When the trial ended, Lyra had finished first. She was exhausted, her body trembling, but she smiled as she saw the reactions of the other trainees. Shock, disbelief, and slowly, respect. The whispers of fragile species had quieted, replaced by a new word: capable. Trix caught up to her, breathless but grinning. "I told you," he said. "They're going to remember this." "They can't ignore what you've done." Lyra shook her head, still smiling through exhaustion.
"I didn't do it to prove them wrong," she said softly. "I did it to prove to myself that humans are more than what anyone imagines."
And we're just getting started. The Academy officials were equally astonished. They had never seen a human perform at this level. Scientists scrambled to analyze data from the trial, while other trainees speculated quietly in corners. The fragile human had become the center of attention, not because she sought fame, but because her actions demanded recognition. That night, Lyra returned to the secret chamber. She knew the public trial had only revealed a fraction of her capabilities. There were more levels to train, more limits to test. She pushed the gravity higher, experimenting with new techniques, testing endurance and agility beyond anything the aliens had seen. Trix joined her again, offering guidance and learning from her ingenuity. Together, they refined movements, increased strength, and built strategies that would be essential for the interstellar games. Lyra's secret continued to grow. Her reputation, slowly and quietly, transformed from fragility to awe. The aliens who had mocked her could no longer dismiss her. Even some of the most powerful competitors began to study her, trying to anticipate her tactics, to understand her endurance, to predict her movements. But Lyra was unpredictable. Her strength was not just physical. It was mental, strategic, and adaptive. She trained harder than ever, knowing that the challenges ahead would be greater than anything she had faced in the chamber. She would face not only physical trials, but also environmental hazards, tactical battles, and opponents who were stronger, larger, and more experienced. But she felt ready. She had endured what no alien could. She had pushed herself beyond what most humans believed possible. She had become a force to be reckoned with. As she lay down that night, exhausted but determined, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile. The galaxy had judged humans fragile, limited, unworthy of respect. But Lyra had shown that perception was not reality. Humans were adaptable. Humans were resilient. Humans could endure and overcome. And when the real trials began, she would show them all just how extraordinary her species could be. The day of the interstellar competition had finally arrived. The arena was unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Towers of metal and stone rose hundreds of meters into the sky. Twisting bridges and platforms spanned wide chasms, and energy barriers hummed ominously, ready to test every skill a competitor might have. Aliens from dozens of worlds had gathered to watch and participate, their voices a chorus of anticipation and excitement. Lyra stood at the starting line, her small frame almost swallowed by the enormity of the arena. The other competitors towered over her, muscles rippling, claws extended, wings spread wide. Many sneered at her, calling her fragile, whispering the words she had heard so many times before. But she felt no fear, no shame. She had trained in ways they could not imagine. She had endured forces no alien could survive. She was ready. The horn sounded, sharp and echoing through the arena. Competitors surged forward. Massive aliens leaped across gaps. Tentacle beings swung with incredible speed, and winged species soared over obstacles. Lyra began cautiously, measuring the gravity, the tension of the platforms, the timing of the moving barriers. Then, she pushed. She moved faster than anyone expected. Her legs carried her across chasms in powerful, precise leaps. Her arms helped her balance, dodge, and propel herself forward. Objects fell around her. Obstacles slammed into the ground, and yet she flowed through it all with a grace that seemed impossible for her size. A group of towering aliens approached a collapsing bridge. They hesitated, unsure if they could cross without falling. Lyra didn't pause. She sprinted, jumped, and landed perfectly on the next platform. She turned back, gesturing for the others to follow. Some did, inspired by her confidence, while others balked, stumbling and falling. It wasn't brute strength that carried her forward. It was calculation, observation, and adaptability. She noticed subtle changes in the environment before anyone else. A swinging beam that could hit her opponent in the chest moved too fast for the large aliens to react in time. But Lyra timed her jump perfectly. A platform tilted at the wrong angle. She adjusted her balance instantly, avoiding the fall that trapped a competitor behind her. By the midpoint of the arena, many of the largest and strongest competitors were struggling. Their size, once a clear advantage, became a liability. Heavy limbs slowed them. Claws and wings snagged on obstacles. But Lyra thrived. She adjusted her movements, exploiting gaps and weaknesses, moving with an intelligence the other species had not considered. In a particularly dangerous section, the floor dropped away in shifting panels. Some panels were weighted and would collapse under too much pressure. Aliens stepped boldly, misjudging the weight, and fell into the chasm below. Lyra paused, calculating. She took a careful step, testing each panel. Then she ran, hopping from one to the next, balancing, pushing off walls, and landing safely on the far side. She looked back at the others, who were struggling to keep up, and felt a small surge of satisfaction. The audience gasped. Spectators from various worlds had never seen such precise, fluid motion from a human. Whispers spread quickly. The fragile species. She's incredible. Others shook their heads in disbelief, trying to convince themselves that it could not be possible. But the results spoke for themselves. As she approached the final stage of the course, a massive obstacle awaited. A canyon filled with jagged rock spires, moving energy barriers, and sudden blasts of force designed to knock competitors off balance. Most aliens hesitated, calculating risk. Lyra didn't. She focused, remembering every second of her training in the 5x gravity chamber. She could endure what others could not. She leaped, twisted, and dodged with perfect timing. One massive alien lunged at her from above, thinking to block her path. Lyra ducked, rolled, and vaulted over him, her momentum carrying her past the final barrier. She hit the ground and sprinted across the finish line, collapsing briefly in exhaustion but smiling triumphantly. She had finished first. Silence fell for a moment. Then the arena erupted. Cheers, whistles, and exclamations filled the air. Aliens who had mocked her, who had called humans fragile, now stared with wide eyes. Some lowered their heads in respect. Others struggled to process what they had just witnessed. Trix appeared at the finish line, forearms raised in admiration. "I told you!" he shouted over the roar. "They can't ignore you now. You've shown them all." Lyra shook her head, still catching her breath.
"It's not about showing them. It's about proving what humans can do." Academy officials approached, their faces serious but impressed.
They had never recorded a human performing at this level. Notes were taken, sensors adjusted, and analyses began immediately. The fragile species had surpassed expectations, rewritten what was thought possible, and demanded respect not through words, but through action. Competitors approached her cautiously. Some extended arms in congratulations. Others simply nodded, acknowledging a superior skill. A few, the largest and most arrogant, scowled, but could not deny her performance. She had beaten them, not with brute force, but with endurance, strategy, and adaptability. The rest of the day passed in a blur of events. Lyra was interviewed by officials, observed by scientists, and quietly studied by her competitors. She noticed small changes. The whispers of mockery had mostly stopped. In their place was fascination and, in some cases, fear. Aliens who had once laughed at humans were now reconsidering everything they thought they knew about them. That evening, Lyra returned to her quarters, muscles sore but mind racing. She replayed every movement, every decision, every leap. She had performed at a level no human had before. But she knew this was only the beginning. The next rounds would be more difficult, more dangerous, and require not only physical skill but leadership and tactical thinking. Trix joined her, carrying 2 small training packs. "You've changed everything today," he said, his tone a mix of pride and excitement. "The others can't ignore you. They'll be watching, trying to figure out your strategy. And honestly, I don't think they'll be able to." Lyra unpacked her gear, stretching carefully. "Good," she said. "Let them watch. Let them underestimate us. That's when humans do the best work, when no one expects it." Over the next few days, she trained with Trix in secret again, refining movements, testing endurance, and preparing for the upcoming challenges. Word of her performance spread throughout the academy and the galaxy-wide audience. Humans were no longer whispered about as fragile. They were being spoken of with awe. One day, a particularly large competitor, a towering alien with obsidian armor and 4 heavy arms, approached her.
"Human," he said, his voice deep and cautious. "I underestimated you."
I thought you were weak. I see. Now I was wrong." Lyra looked up, her expression calm. Strength isn't just about size or appearance. It's about persistence, adaptation, and strategy. Humans survive because we endure.
He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I will not make that mistake again."
Aliens who once mocked her now treated her with respect. Some even asked for guidance, though she offered little. She had learned long ago that true strength came from personal effort, not from shortcuts or favors. The second trial promised to be even more difficult. Environmental hazards, unpredictable terrain, and tactical challenges awaited. Lyra's training in secret gravity chambers, her experiments with endurance and agility, and her unyielding determination had prepared her for this. She was no longer just a participant. She was a contender, a symbol of what humans could achieve when pushed beyond the limits others assumed they had. As she stood on the observation platform overlooking the arena, she took a deep breath. She could hear the murmurs, the whispers, the nervous glances of the other competitors. She could feel their eyes on her, expecting failure, expecting weakness. But she knew the truth. Humans were not fragile. Humans were adaptable, resilient, and capable of greatness. And she was about to prove it again, in a way that no one would ever forget. Lyra clenched her fists, feeling the burn of her muscles, the rhythm of her heartbeat, and the calm steadiness of her mind. The galaxy had judged humans lightly. They had called her fragile. They had doubted her. Tomorrow, they would witness her full potential. The final day of the Interstellar Games arrived, and the arena was unlike anything Lyra had ever imagined. Towers rose impossibly high, spinning platforms hovered above lava pits, and energy barriers shifted without warning. The crowd of spectators from countless worlds filled the stands, buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Aliens whispered among themselves, some anxious, some awed, all aware that the human had already changed the expectations of the competition. Lyra stood at the starting line. Her body was tired but prepared, every muscle honed through weeks of extreme training, both in secret and in public. She scanned her opponents, massive warriors with claws sharp enough to pierce metal, winged predators that could swoop faster than any human sprint, and tentacled strategists who had mastered every known obstacle. Some of them glanced at her and smiled, still convinced that humans could not withstand the final trial. Others looked nervous. By now, many had heard the whispers of her endurance, her speed, her clever problem-solving. She didn't need their approval, but she noticed it anyway. The horn sounded echoing through the arena, signaling the start. Competitors surged forward like waves, crashing into obstacles, leaping across chasms, and dodging swinging barriers. Lyra began cautiously, feeling the gravity, testing the rhythm, and measuring the traps. And then she moved. Her movements were fluid and precise, almost like water flowing over stones. Where others relied on raw strength, she relied on observation and timing. A massive four-armed alien leapt toward her, trying to block her path, but she twisted mid-air, landing safely, and using his own momentum to propel herself forward. She darted through spinning platforms, ducked under energy beams, and vaulted over jagged rocks with agility that left even the fastest competitors struggling to keep up. The arena tested more than strength. It tested intelligence and adaptability. Sections changed unpredictably, forcing competitors to think quickly. Some areas emitted heat intense enough to sear scales. Others sent freezing winds that would immobilize many species. Lyra had faced greater forces in the gravity chamber, and she adapted. She slowed when necessary, pushed when required, and calculated every move with precision. At one point, a collapsing bridge swayed over a pit of molten rock. A winged alien soared across with grace, but the wind caught his wings, throwing him off balance. Lyra hesitated for a fraction of a second, then sprinted across, using her momentum to stabilize herself mid-air. She landed safely, turned back, and offered a small gesture to the competitor, who nodded in astonishment. Her endurance was being tested like never before. Her muscles burned, lungs strained, and sweat poured down her body.
But she kept moving. Every step, every jump, every dodge was a demonstration of what humans could endure.
Where other species relied on size, speed, or natural strength, Lyra relied on training, strategy, and determination. As she entered the midsection of the arena, a series of unpredictable energy traps activated. Lights flashed, barriers shifted, and the floor beneath competitors cracked and moved. Many aliens faltered, slipping or being forced backward. Lyra analyzed the patterns quickly. She timed her movements, leaped with precision, and used every ounce of her strength and agility to advance. She even found ways to manipulate the environment to her advantage, knocking barriers into opponents and clearing paths where others struggled. Her performance was no longer surprising to the spectators. It was mesmerizing. Cheers erupted as she moved faster and more efficiently than anyone thought possible. The whispers of fragile species had long disappeared, replaced by awe. Aliens who had once mocked her now watched with disbelief, realizing that their preconceived notions were utterly wrong. The final obstacle awaited. A massive, rotating tower filled with narrow ledges, swinging hammers, and sudden energy bursts. Most competitors approached cautiously, trying to calculate the timing. Many hesitated too long, missing opportunities to advance. Lyra did not hesitate. Her body moved on instinct honed from countless hours of extreme training. She jumped, twisted, and climbed with a precision that left her opponents struggling to keep pace. A particularly large competitor lunged from a swinging platform, intending to block her. Lyra pivoted, dodged, and used the momentum to leap past him. She landed on a narrow ledge, balanced perfectly, and continued upward. Her endurance allowed her to maintain speed where others slowed. Her mind anticipated patterns in the machinery, allowing her to move where others paused. By the time she reached the summit, most of her competitors were far behind. Some had fallen, some had frozen in hesitation, and others struggled with exhaustion. Lyra stood at the top, breathing heavily but composed, scanning the final challenge. It was a complex puzzle of energy gates and moving platforms. One mistake would send her tumbling, but she had faced far worse. Step by step, she moved forward. She anticipated the energy bursts, calculated the timing of each gate, and adjusted her balance perfectly for every shift in the platform. Her body ached, her lungs burned, but she pushed through, relying on the training that had made her stronger than anyone had imagined. Finally, she reached the finish line. She slammed her hand against the sensor, signaling her victory. Exhaustion overtook her for a brief moment, but the roar of the crowd brought her back. Spectators from dozens of species cheered wildly. Some waved banners in her honor. Others shouted in disbelief. The fragile human had conquered the arena, proving that size and appearance were meaningless compared to skill, intelligence, and perseverance. Trix arrived beside her, eyes wide with pride.
"You've done it,"
he said, voice trembling.
"They'll never forget this."
"You've changed everything." Lyra smiled, still catching her breath.
"It's not about me," she said quietly. "It's about showing what humans are capable of. They need to see that we're more than they think." The Academy officials approached, their faces serious but filled with respect. They had recorded every movement, analyzed every strategy, and confirmed what the spectators had already realized. Humans could not be underestimated. Lyra's performance had rewritten the expectations for the fragile species. One of the largest competitors approached her, head bowed slightly.
"Human," he said, voice low and respectful.
I judged you wrong."
I see now that humans are not fragile. You are extraordinary.
Lyra nodded, acknowledging him. "We survive because we endure. We thrive because we push beyond limits. That is what humans do." The final awards ceremony began, and Lyra stood on the podium, small among the towering beings around her, but radiant with achievement. She received recognition not just for winning, but for demonstrating ingenuity, resilience, and perseverance, the very qualities that defined humanity. The audience erupted in applause, cheers, and exclamations.
Aliens who had doubted her now looked at humans with newfound respect. Oh.
Many competitors approached, asking for guidance, for advice, for insight into how she had achieved such feats. Lyra remained humble, knowing that her success was not about proving others wrong, but about honoring her species' potential. Later, as the crowds dispersed and the arena emptied, Lyra stood on the observation platform, looking out at the stars beyond. Countless worlds, countless challenges, and endless possibilities awaited her. She had faced doubt, endured pain, and overcome obstacles that others deemed impossible. And she knew this was only the beginning. Trix joined her, his forearms folded behind him. "You've changed the way everyone sees humans," he said. "No one will ever underestimate your species again." Lyra smiled, gazing at the horizon. "We don't need them to believe in us," she said softly. "We just need to keep proving it for ourselves." As they watched the stars, Lyra felt a quiet confidence settle within her. The galaxy had called humans fragile. They had doubted her, laughed at her, and dismissed her abilities. But through determination, training, and unwavering perseverance, she had shown the truth. Humans were resilient, clever, and capable of greatness. And Lyra had become living proof. The games had ended, but her journey was far from over. She had faced her first true test, survived, and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined.
Now, the galaxy had to recognize the human spirit, not as fragile, but as formidable.
She turned to Trix. "We keep training," she said.
There's more to learn, more to push, and more to achieve. The galaxy is bigger than this arena.
And humans will show what we can do. Trix nodded, a smile on his face. "I'm with you," he said. "Let's see just how far humans can go." Lyra took one last look at the arena below, the place where whispers of fragility had turned into cheers of admiration. She felt a surge of pride, not for herself alone, but for her species. Humans had been underestimated, overlooked, and dismissed. But now the galaxy knew. When humans pushed beyond limits, they became unstoppable. And Lyra, the human who had trained in 5x gravity for fun, had shown them all exactly why. Her story would be remembered, not as the tale of a fragile species, but as a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of human determination. For Lyra, this was only the beginning. The stars were calling, and humanity had proven it was ready to answer.